Assalamu alaikum guys, so I wanted to do a quick video touching upon the topic briefly without going into too much detail on the topic of feminism and women in Islam. I normally don't talk about this subject. However, it's important because one thing I've noticed is that there seems to be a somewhat of a trend in certain parts of the world amongst Muslim sisters who are moving towards or adopting feminism or a type of feminism when there really isn't any need. If we briefly look at the history of feminism, especially in the West, in Europe, we can trace its origins all the way back to the Industrial Revolution, when women and children, for that matter, were forced into factories where they had to work. Both were subjugated, but eventually, due to social movements, initially, children were spared from this crime, almost, you can say. It is a crime. But women, unfortunately, had to continue to work in these factories, do longer hours, return home and then do their other duties, take care of the kids. And all of this, in the process, they were exploited. They were paid far less than men were. And it was a really atrocious type of situation. And what's really sad is that, prior to this, or one of the reasons for this was, this inequality was the notion of a woman in the West. Amongst philosophers, thinkers, theologians, the idea was that amongst some circles that women didn't even have souls. This was a big point of discussion. Do women have souls? If they have souls, what's the nature of the souls? Is it a human soul or is it an animal soul, and so on and so forth? These absurd discussions were going on for centuries. And this situation naturally, this oppression naturally led to women initially trying to take a stand and eventually taking a stand. And they've been struggling. They struggled for decades trying to get their right. And eventually they did manage to change these things. But even today, you would see it that, in some jobs where men and women are doing the same role, women will be paid less. So anyway, the reason I'm sharing this history with you is because it allows us to appreciate some of the reasons behind the origins of this feminist movement, where women wanted equality, they wanted their rights, which has now led to this sort of distorted view, which is that equality means being equal in every sphere, that therefore, in other words, women do everything men do. There's many other aspects to this discussion, but that's the sort of general idea. Now, the problem here, especially for Muslim sisters that are enticed by feminism, one of the issues is that Islam never had this issue, never had this problem. We didn't have this distorted view of a woman and her origins that were present in the West. So for example, from the Islamic perspective, both men and women have the same origin. Both are created by God, both have souls, both are to work in this world, trying to attain the pleasure of God and trying to attain paradise, and both are rewarded for their good deeds equally. So the equality from an origins perspective is there. However, what you can't run away from or shy away from or brush aside is that men and women are different in many respects. Now, something I want to point out here is that a difference, just because there is a difference, it doesn't necessarily now or logically follow that one is better than the other. This is what's conflated sometimes. Oh, they're different, therefore one is better than the other. No. Take, for example, I'm trying to think of an analogy here. Take meat and vegetables, right? You can't say definitively lamb is better than broccoli, because they are two different things that serve a different purpose or function. They're both needed, they're both required, they're both good. That could be argued, obviously, but like I said, not a perfect analogy, but it's enough to get the point across. So Islam recognizes that men and women are different. Biologically, they're different. Physically, obviously, therefore they are different. And they have different roles. And if anything, both men and women complement each other in this world. When they work together, take for example in a family structure, there is goodness that comes from this. Women have their role, men have their role. Some things overlap. So for example, when it comes to business, women can work, men can work. Women can have their businesses, men can have their businesses. We see early examples of this in the life of the Prophet, peace be upon him. His wife, Khadija, radiallahu anha, may God's blessings be upon her, she was a merchant, she was a businesswoman. She ran her own business and the Prophet worked for her initially. So there's many overlaps, but there are differences in their roles as well. And when both parties recognize their function as created beings of God, and they therefore work together and complement each other, you see beautiful things happen. You see order within these social structures. But when you have distorted views, such as that men and women should be equal, they both should do everything each other does, that's when you end up with issues and problems. And look, I just want to conclude with this point. Why should women, especially Muslim women, sisters, take men as a criteria? Women should do everything a man should do. Why is man the criteria? Why are you defining yourself against man? You should define yourself from the perspective of God. What has God told you? How's God highlighted that you are special and unique? Wasn't Maryam alayhi salam chosen by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And she was one of the most pious worshippers of Allah. Hasn't God given us other examples of amazing, powerful, productive women in our tradition? Of course. So take them as your role models. And men, you take your role models. And understand who you are as individuals, who you are as a man and who you are as a woman, and understand your roles and responsibilities, and understand how you complement each other within this world. And this is what will lead to a productive society. So I wanted to share those thoughts. That women, sisters, don't need to, let's not jump onto this feminist bandwagon without really giving it much thought. I mean, Islam has given us far more honor, far more izzah, far more things to be proud of. Islam has identified us, defined us as human beings, and then also defined us as individuals, as men and women. And this is from Allah. And what God gives us is the truth, and it's what's going to really result in prosperity for us as individuals and the whole society, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to leave you guys with this. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And until next time, take care.